And so we help people. What we provide is we provide hope. We provide these families hope and surrounded by others who understand their journey. And we provide it free for an entire year.
Wow. In addition to hope, what other things did you find that people were most wanting, needing, looking for that they weren't getting?
Understanding, because I think it's people in our program, that's one thing they understood, is that they were just so impacted to be surrounded by people who understood.
Mm.
That is such a powerful thing. And I think a lot of these people have good support around with family and friends, but not many that have really can say they understand, right? You have friends and family who try to understand, but they can't really unless you walked in those shoes. So being able to step in and be that source of understanding has made a huge difference. When you talk to somebody who's walking through grief, you go, am I crazy? Am I crazy to think this way? Am I crazy to feel this way? And you hear from others, no, that's exactly how I felt.
What would you say if, after a tragic accident, someone approached you to say that your daughter would be a beautiful candidate for organ donation? Tough decision, right? So that is why I would love for you to take the next hour listening to an incredible lady, Tara Storch, who faced that decision with her husband when her eldest daughter had a tragic skiing accident at the tender age of 13. With her husband, Todd, Tara went on to co-author the award-winning book, Taylor's Gift, which was recognized as the most inspirational book at the Books for a Better Life Awards in New York City. She and her husband were also recognized as heroes among us by People magazine, and Tara has shared her journey on platforms such as Good Morning America, The Today Show, The Ellen Show, and now The Beautiful Side of Grief. So you see what a powerful story we have in store for you. Tara shares a story because she has an inspirational message to share with the world, and that is to outlive yourself and be a compassionate source of hope. So great to have you listening in today, and get comfy to hear this truly heartwarming story of Taylor and what she has gifted the world in the brief time she was here, and how grief and gratitude can walk hand in hand. A very warm welcome to you, Tara.
Thank you for having me.
First up, the title to your book, Taylor's Gift, that touched my heart from the get-go. So thank you indeed for that beautiful title. Before we get into the incredible work you're doing with Taylor's Gift Foundation, can you take us back to that time of March 2010 and what led you to do what you are doing now?
Yes. Yeah, it was March of 2010, and we were on our spring break vacation in Beaver Creek, Colorado, having our first family ski trip. And it was on that first day of our vacation where Taylor, and who's 13, and Ryan, who was 11, and my husband wanted to make one last run down the slopes before the slopes closed. And our little one, 9-year-old Peyton, was tired and wanted some hot chocolate. So we went down to the bottom of the mountain to wait for them. And it was on that last run of the day that Taylor just had an accident and went into the trees, just lost her footing and went into the trees, and she hit a tree. Doing everything right, wearing a helmet, great athlete. It was just a complete accident. And so my husband and son called ski patrol, and there was a lot of panic and fear and unknown happening on the mountain that my daughter and I, my 9-year-old and I, didn't know about until they're coming down to meet us. And I notice quickly that Taylor's not with them. And my husband grabbed me by the shoulders and just gently said, Taylor's been in an accident. Looks like we're going to have to get her care flighted. And then your whole world just stops, right? Just absolutely stops. They immediately took her to the local hospital in Vail, where they understood her injuries were not good. And so they care flighted her to Grand Junction, Colorado, where we went there as quick as we could. And when we got there, I remember meeting with a whole group of doctors who met us right there in the lobby. And I remember asking, okay, she has volleyball tryouts coming up in high school. I know she's probably broken some bones. How long do you think it'll be? And I'm sure we'll have the summer to help her recover. And they looked at us and they said, that's the least of your worries right now. So they worked on her for over a day, trying to save her in any way they could. And I remember, I think it was the second day at the hospital, my husband was standing by Taylor's bed and I was sitting on a couch right next to Taylor's bed. And this nurse walked in and she just knelt down in front of me and she said, your daughter's a beautiful candidate for organ donation. Would you consider it? And the way she asked was so gentle and so kind. And I remember looking at my husband and we just immediately said yes. And we had never talked about organ donation, Helen, in our family, not even once. It wasn't a conversation we had in our home. I think I had checked it off on my driver's license but it wasn't a topic that we ever talked about. But we knew in that moment that it was the right thing for our family. Taylor was such an others-centered child. She was that friend to all. And we knew in our heart of hearts, if she would have been asked, Taylor, do you want your final act on this earth to save others' lives? She would have said, absolutely. And Taylor went on to save and improve the lives of 5 people with the gift of her heart, her kidneys, her liver, pancreas, and she gave sight with her cornea. And that one yes took us on a completely different path in our family and in our life.
That is just the courage that you had in those moments. I can't even begin to imagine what that time was like, just to be right there beside her, having all of that hope, and then suddenly being faced with that decision. And you made it without thinking. So that was incredible in itself. And like you said, you just knew that she would welcome that decision because of the beautiful personality that she was. And I don't know about you, but have you found that some of these children that leave us early are those types of incredible personalities? They just shine larger than life. Have you seen that at all?
Oh my gosh, yes. Especially with the work we do with Taylor's Gift. We're working with grieving families, and it is amazing to hear that the common thread is what an incredible person they were.
Yeah.
What an amazing person they were. What an amazing child they were, that they would give the shirt off their back. And there's so many stories, I'm sure you're the same, that you kind of found out after the fact.
Yeah.
Of the way your child was such a servant to others that you had no idea. And it's because with Taylor, she never came home and said, look what I did today. I sat next to the girl in the lunchroom that had no friends. She never bragged on herself or even thought about talking about that because that was just part of her nature. It was just how she was wired, was so other-centered. So you're right, that decision came very easy out of all the hard decisions we were being faced with. That one was the easiest one to say yes to because of the type of child she was. And then, we came back from Colorado to Texas to start our life without our oldest child. And it's just such a shock. And it was about a couple of weeks after, I remember my husband and I were sitting in the backyard and he said, Tara, my grandfather said something to me when I was young and it meant nothing to me then, nothing, but it means everything to me right now. And he used to say, Todd, it's not what happens to you that matters. It's how you react to it that does. And don't get me wrong, Helen, of course it mattered that we lost Taylor. It completely shattered our world, but we knew our reaction was going to be real important, especially to our other 2 children. So we had a choice to cave up in the grief and shut the world out or find the good. And the good was that Taylor saved lives through organ donation. So my husband started doing some research about that because we didn't know much about it, but it was that spider web of hope. Spider web's very strong, right?
Yes.
And it was just that one thread of hope we were hanging on to, that this is the good that could come out of this, right? So we quickly started Taylor's Gift Foundation really with the purpose to share the importance of organ donation and how incredibly life-giving it is. And we found that it wasn't really an easy topic people talked about.
No.
It wasn't something that people really wanted to discuss. And so we knew we had to change that conversation. And so that really was our mission. And so we started off really with changing that conversation about the importance of organ donation. And we coined the phrase, outlive yourself. How do you want to outlive yourself and leave a lasting difference in the lives of others? And so that became our way to talk about it, because it's not easy to sit around a table and ask your friends and family, do you want to be an organ donor?
Yeah.
Because immediately people think of death. But organ, eye, and tissue donation is all about life. That's what it's about.
Yeah.
And so we wanted to change that. So you can have the conversation with your family and friends and say, how do you want to outlive yourself? And if you want to save others someday, potentially do that, you can let your family know. Just say, how I want to outlive myself is I want to save others with anything I have to give. Just so they know, having that conversation is just so important that when and if that time comes, that's not something your family would ever be concerned about, knowing if that's what you would want. And so that's a great way to talk about it. It's just, how do you want to outlive yourself? And so that's when we started the foundation, really with that initial purpose. And it's really grown. And I'll share about that with you in just a little bit too.
Yeah, absolutely. And I just want to mention to you, here in New Zealand, when we first get our driver's license, we can make that decision and have it actually put on to our driver's license that we want to be a donor.
Same thing in the States.
Yeah. And I think that is so important. But again, like you say, there's just not enough good conversations around, death itself. It's a reality for all of us, but also these types of situations. And I think slowly it's getting better through the type of work that you're doing and those sorts of things. Did you actually get to meet any of the recipients of Taylor's organ?
Yes, we have. We have been so blessed to have met 4 out of the 5 recipients.
Wow.
And when we met her heart recipient, that story hit Good Morning America and really launched Taylor's Gift Foundation's name, right? Mm-hmm. And you can find that story on our website. You can go to taylorsgift.org, and we have a section in there where you can see all the media. And just, I would recommend, if you're going to watch anything, go to the Good Morning America one, because that's really what launched it. And yeah, we've met with her heart recipient. We've met with her kidney and pancreas recipient, Jeff, who is now a grandfather. He never would have had that time. Her other kidney recipient, her cornea recipient, who now has sight. It's been pretty powerful, because all these people, all they wanted was just the gift of time, right? The gift of time with their family and with their friends. And Taylor was able to give them those experiences, those adventures, those time with family. It's not like they were trying to climb a mountain or something. They just wanted to be like mom. They wanted to be dad. They wanted to be friend. And Taylor was able to give them that second chance.
That's so beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
So, did you feel like you were well supported both during that whole process, but more importantly, after that process of donating?
So during the process at the hospital, yes, we felt very supported. The right people were in the right place for us. And we had also lots of family that flew in to be with us. So we were very supported in that way. And when we got back, the grief of a donor family, that's what we're called. A donor family is a family whose loved one was able to give the gift of life. So we're the donor family. And we looked for others who had experienced this, because the grief of a donor family is unique in the sense because you've got the grief from the sudden loss, because organ donation usually comes out of an accident or a tragedy. It just does, combined with this silver lining of gratitude that our loved one was able to save others. And so the grief of a donor family is really where grief and gratitude share the same space. And we were looking for people who understood that. And we really struggled to find that. And so when we started Taylor's Gift Foundation, really it was about the importance of organ donation, but we wanted to step into this emotional support piece to fill this gap. And along the way, we found there was a huge gap in the United States for this particular type of grief care, grief
Yeah.
support. And so we wanted to step into this. And years ago, we tried to step in, but honestly, the world wasn't ready. Mental health was not something that people really talked about that much. When looking for support and receiving support, especially in the States, was not something that was very out there and accepted. And then when COVID hit, everyone started to understand the need to get support. And grief support became a really big thing because of COVID. And there was so much death around that. And so people were looking for that grief support and open to it. And so it was the perfect time for us to really launch our program. And so we provide dedicated grief support to the donor side. And we're the only nonprofit in the United States who has 100%, that is our focus, is dedicated grief support specifically for the donor side of donation.
Wow, that's incredible. And it's 100% free for them, isn't it? There's no cost to them whatsoever. It's supporting each and every member of that family as they need the support.
And the way is a couple things. We offer peer-to-peer support by what we call our caring guides. And peer-to-peer support, what that means for Taylor's Gift is that our caring guides have walked through grief. Mm-hmm. You and I both know, you and I talking together, we understand what loss is like. We have walked that journey, and talking to others who have walked it ahead of you and having that immediate understanding is so powerful. And so we offer that one-on-one peer support, so individual support. And then we also offer group support, which is loss specific. So we have groups for child loss, spouse loss, suicide loss. So if you've experienced those, you're surrounded by others who have also walked that journey. And it has been a game changer for people's moving forward in progress. Because I don't want to say healing, what's helped in healing, because I don't think we'll ever heal from this, but we sure will absolutely move forward, right? Mm-hmm. We will. We'll take those steps forward, and we'll take our loved one with us as we move forward in different ways. And so we help people. What we provide is we provide hope, is what we provide. We provide these families hope, and surrounded by others who understand their journey. And we provide it free for an entire year.
Wow. In addition to hope, what other things did you find that people were most wanting, needing, looking for that they weren't getting?
Understanding, because I think it's people in our program, that's one thing they understood, is that they were just so impacted to be surrounded by people who understood. Mm-hmm. That is such a powerful thing. And I think a lot of these people have good support around with family and friends, but not many that have really can say they understand, right? You have friends and family who try to understand, but they can't really unless you walked in those shoes. So being able to step in and be that source of understanding has made a huge difference. When you talk to somebody who's walking through grief, you go, am I crazy? Am I crazy to think this way? Am I crazy to feel this way? And you hear from others, no, that's exactly how I felt. And also you can see people who are years ahead of you and say, okay, they've done this. I can do this too, right? And just things they've learned along the way. And yes, I think we provide hope, we provide understanding, we provide compassion, and we just provide them truly a circle of care.
I think the other interesting thing that I particularly found was that in my experience, this turned my whole life as I knew it on its ear. It's like nothing is the same. I didn't think the same. I didn't react the same. And sometimes I found myself going, oh my gosh, why or things that I'd done all of my life, I found you're gone. You're not important anymore. And so let's talk about that, because I think that is a key thing that people need to understand, is just how dramatic their life can change and having that support to navigate it.
Oh, absolutely. Having that kind of support, just having people to lean on, right? I'm sure you experienced this, that you had probably friends who were in the fringes of your life who became right at your feet,
Oh,
right?
yes.
Didn't you experience that? And then you also had friends who you thought would be there for you that just couldn't handle how hard this was for you, right? And so they were able to be there in different ways. But it's an amazing, when you said the priorities shifted, right? Your priorities
Mm,
completely changed because your whole world has flipped upside down.
mm,
I remember the first time walking into a restaurant and asking for a table of 4 instead of a table of 5. And
yes.
that just about, I almost lost it. And so there's moments like that that make you feel like, am I losing it to feel this way? And to hear others who say, no, I felt that way. I understand that. And the next time I went back and asked for a table, it still hurt, but not as much. And then the next time I went back and asked for a table, so it's that just encouragement to keep moving forward.
Yes, yes. And it's just letting people know, yeah, you're not crazy.
Mm-mm.
What you're feeling is totally normal.
That's right. That's
Exactly.
right.
Yeah, yeah. What did you find helped you and your family the most in dealing with this, navigating this incredible loss of Taylor?
I would say quite a few things. One is that my husband and I were introduced to a counselor who had lost a child.
Mm-hmm.
And having a grief counselor who had walked that kind of similar journey was very helpful. But also just loving our children exactly where they were at that moment, because grief is so up and down and it doesn't make sense sometimes. My husband and I were grieving on completely different paths,
Yeah.
completely different paths. I mean, we were just complete opposite. He wanted to be around Taylor's friends all the time. I couldn't be around Taylor's friends. We were just so opposite. And we were introduced to another couple who were 10 years ahead of us. And I remember my first thought was, how have they done this for 10 years? Right.
Mm.
I just couldn't imagine that. And I remember when she opened the door, her and her husband opened the door to greet us. She was dressed really cute, had a big smile on her face. And I was like, how are you doing this? And they sat down with us and we were just telling them about our struggle and how we're grieving so differently. And they said something that was just such a game changer for Todd and I. And it was not this, it was a big aha moment for me, but it wasn't like big. And what they said was, you have to give each other the grace to grieve the way they need to grieve. And it really woke us up because we've had such a strong marriage, but we were not giving each other that grace
Mm.
and to be able to just grieve. And so from then on out, if he needed to be around Taylor's friends, that was great with me. If I needed to stay in bed all day, he was okay with that. And so we started giving each other grace. And then that extended to those around us too, because people don't know what to say. And sometimes they say things that are a little hurtful, and so we started giving people grace, knowing that we know they're trying. We know they're trying. And I mean, sometimes you just wonder, why in the world would you say that to me? But on the flip side of that, they're just trying to care for us the best way they know how.
Yeah.
So that little word of grace really started overflowing into things. And it wasn't always perfect. Don't get me wrong. It wasn't always that I never got upset or never got irritated. I wasn't always giving grace as much as I'd like sometimes. I think we were trying. And that's really what it came down to be. And because, you and I both know grief can be very lonely because
Yeah.
it can be very lonely because sometimes people don't know what to say. So the option is for them not to say a thing.
Yeah.
I'm just not going to say anything, right? Which is actually worse because I'm already feeling so isolated and on an island. For you not to say anything actually makes that island even further away in the ocean. And just recognizing that was also very powerful. And knowing that moving forward, how I would always step into that space from now on out. Like I would never avoid that hard. When I had a great example of a friend that just showed up, and she was such a great example of this. Her name's Daniela. And Daniela, I didn't know. She was just in our community. And I remember she showed up, I think a week and a half after Taylor passed away. and she rang our doorbell. And I opened the door and she said, you don't know me and I really don't know you, but I know your story. And I just want to let you know, I don't know what to say, but I'm here. And that was the beginning of the most incredible friendship. And it was such a beautiful testimony to me to just show up. That was when people ask me all the time, and I'm sure you get this too, how do you help a friend who's grieving? How do you help a friend? And my advice is always, I always think of Daniela, is just show up and show up in the hard. Just ring that doorbell. And it's great to say, I don't know what to say, but I just want to let you know I'm here. That right there was so powerful because there were so many people that just were trying to fix me. They wanted the Tara who I was before to be the Tara I was when I saw them that day when they came to visit. And I was a completely different person, right? So just being able to say, I don't know what to say and not try to fix was the most beautiful gift a friend who could ever give. And she's been that way ever since.
I'm glad you brought that up about grace because that's such a big thing in my life now. And I learned that so well exactly from the situation you spoke about. And I always thought, I know people who haven't experienced grief don't know what to say. If the only thing they can relate it to is like losing their pet. And you go, how can you compare my daughter to losing your pet? But then when you step back and think about it, that's the only thing they can relate it to. So what they're trying to do is to relate, to be there, to connect. Right. And that's the essence of it. So for me, it never mattered that people got it wrong and said the wrong things because I just loved that they were there, that they were showing up, that they cared. And
they tried.
Yes, they tried. I loved that so much. What about your children in this equation? Because I was reading something the other day that was saying that quite often children get overlooked in this whole equation. People go straight to the parents and go, how are you doing? But they forget about how are these children who are left behind, how are they doing? How are they coping? How has this affected their life?
They have become the most incredible adults. And I think some of this is because of that experience. They're very compassionate. They're very empathetic. But back on the notion of people caring for them, as a mom, it was very difficult to step out of my grief to be a good mom during that time. And it was I have to admit that I was in bed. I could not function. Grief wore me to the point where I was a shell of myself. Yeah. And I had friends and family who recognized that and they stepped in. And I remember so many times they were my reason to get up. I was getting up and packing lunches and things like that and trying to be mom. I was trying so hard. But sometimes when I'd go and pick them up from school and come home, there'd be 2 little gifts on the porch just for them. I had friends who were stepping in just to say, we see you. We know you're hurting too. And so just knowing that there were people in our community who saw Ryan and Peyton and their pain was so amazing. They had a very good support system too at school. We had the principal and the school counselor were always watching out for them and making sure they were okay. And there were times we'd get called from school because Ryan just was having a hard day and we'd have to go get him. And so it ebbed and flowed. But as they got older, they're very proud of the work we're doing for Taylor's Gift. But they themselves have become incredible adults. We had to just learn to love them where they were. And it wasn't always perfect. We tried to get them therapy, but they just weren't ready at that age. I remember we tried to do some counseling with them. And I remember, I think it was our 3rd counselor because Todd and I were just wanting to help them. And I remember the counselor said, you can't force anybody to talk. They'll talk when they're ready. Right. And so they talked to us is what they did. Yeah. And so we were their outlet. it's been pretty amazing to watch the incredible adults they've become. And Peyton is a nurse. She's a labor and delivery nurse, which is so amazing because that is what Taylor's Heart recipient Patricia was. She was a labor and delivery nurse. And a sweet story from that was when Peyton, our daughter, graduated nursing school, Joe, Patricia's husband, sent Peyton the stethoscope that Patricia used.
Oh, it's those little things.
So yeah, Patricia used that stethoscope to let us hear Taylor's heartbeat.
Oh.
And it's the same stethoscope that he sent our daughter Peyton when she graduated nursing school to be a labor and delivery nurse. So very special and very kind and thoughtful of him.
Gosh, there are so many incredible things that people do without being asked that just come out of the woodwork, and just being in tune with those. I think it makes life so precious and so special, even in the worst of times. And yeah, I love that. I also love that you spoke about how broken you were afterwards, because when you do something as big and bold as Taylor's Gift Foundation, and it's recognized so widely, people forget sometimes that you were a broken shell of a person, that
Right.
you had to go through those stages before you got to what you're doing now. Because like people say to me, you're so strong, you're so courageous. And I go, on the surface, on the surface. But yeah, no. Behind the scenes, I was very messy, and yeah, not many people got to see that at all. I'd love for you to share now, Tara, what are the important aspects when you're sharing your message, Outlive Yourself? What are the important aspects of that message that you are wanting people to know?
So Outlive Yourself really comes from leaving a lasting difference in the lives of others. And for Taylor's Gift Foundation, that's very focused on the organ donation piece. But there are so many ways to outlive yourself, right? What you're doing, Helen, is outliving yourself because you're making such a difference. There's so many ways. Giving a smile to somebody can completely outlive yourself because that carries on. So there's so many ways to outlive yourself. And I think it's such a great conversation to have in your home to find out not just end of life wishes, but kind of how do you want to be remembered? What is your outlive yourself moment? What's your leaving lasting difference? And it's different for a lot of people. For everybody, it's different because that's a personal thing. But I think it's really about this leaving a lasting legacy, a lasting difference. And that happens in so many ways too, by just helping others. I'm speaking to a group on Monday, and they help a lot of senior citizens in tough times, right? And just sitting with these people and listening to them and caring for them that's outliving themselves, right? Being present with people is outliving yourself. So there's so many beautiful ways to do that. For Taylor's Gift, it's very focused on the donor family and the registering to be an organ donor to save others' lives. But that meaning could be also powerful in different ways.
Yeah. And I think people have this perception that something like outliving yourself has to be this grand gesture. But I love that you've taken it back to these everyday kindnesses that you provide to others, because that's the other thing that's become big in my life, is being of service. And again, it's not a grand gesture. It's like, what can I do in my day, in my week, to help somebody else go outside of myself? Because I think we can be too focused on ourselves, but when you go outside of yourself and you help somebody, like you say, just sitting down, spending half an hour, having a chat with them, that may have been the best thing in their entire week, just to have somebody go and do that for them. It's life-changing stuff. Yeah.
It is. And and it could be just as simple as you're at the grocery store in line and you compliment the person behind you.
Oh, yes.
You just, oh my gosh, you look pretty today, or I love that jacket you have, or hey, I noticed your necklace. Tell me about that. It doesn't have to be a big gap of your time during the day. It can be little simple things. And you never know just how that little gesture could be a game changer for someone in their mood for that day, or just how they feel just in that moment, even if it's just a fleeting moment of, wow, someone recognized me for a moment, or wow, that was a really nice conversation. It could be just as easy as that.
Yeah.
And you never know where those kind of it becomes a ripple effect. You don't know really where that little nice little comment took that person that day. You just don't know.
Yeah, I love that. And it's also has a ripple effect for you as well, because you're giving that out. It comes back to you in spades.
Absolutely.
So you do lots of fundraisers and bits and pieces with Taylor's Gift Foundation. And I have to ask you, how does Singo Bingo work? How does that work?
So Singo Bingo is our annual fundraiser, and it is super fun. It is a local fundraiser we do in the Dallas area, Dallas, Texas area, United States. So if you have any listeners in this area, that would be great.
Yep.
Yeah, that's great. So what Singo Bingo is, it's bingo combined with name that tune from songs of the 70s, 80s, and 90s. And it is so much fun. So last year we did Singo Bingo for the first time, and it will for sure be our signature fundraiser from here on out. It was a ball because, you know, what we talk about and what our mission is to provide free grief support for donor families is a heavy topic. So we provide these families hope. And so we want to celebrate that. And so that's what we celebrate during our fundraiser.
Oh, yeah, that's so good. What haven't we talked about in this past hour, Tara, that you would like our listeners to know?
We're always needing support. The demand for our service has exceeded our expectations. So I would just suggest your listeners go to taylorsgift.org and learn all about us. Follow us on social media because you can always see what we're doing and up to. And just share about our mission with others. That would be just such a gift.
Yeah. Yeah. And there's loads of different ways they can do that. I know going onto your website, it was a surprise to me because there are so many different levels. You can just give a donation if that's what you're comfortable doing, or you can be that caring support for others if you've been through a similar situation, or a volunteer in other forms. And yes, there's so much you're offering there. And I think it's just a wonderful legacy to Taylor, really. That she's remembered in such a gorgeous way and never forgotten, because that's the other thing is just because our loved ones are no longer here physically, they never, ever leave us. They're in our daily lives, our daily moments all the time. And so for me, I just love sharing that with others and talking about that and letting people know that's so important. Yeah.
That's great.
Yeah. So, Tara, I have a couple of questions that I always finish off my interviews with. And so the first one is, what is the best thing that has happened to you so far today?
Today?
Yep, today.
Okay. So let me think about that. Okay. Probably the best thing that happened to me today is that I was introduced to a mom who lost her son when he was 18. And it's been 18 years since she has lost him. And she and I had so much in common when it came to how we handled our grief. And our personalities were so similar. And it was just such a great thing to find somebody who really related and completely understood, and how we laughed and laughed about just life, and we were silly, and it was fun, and it was just such a fun hour and a half coffee that we cannot wait to do it again. Even though we had these horrible, tragic things happen, we were able to bond on such a deep level so quickly, and then just started talking about other things, which made us laugh, not even related to grief, that we became really good friends. We were bonded by this tragedy we both had, and really just went outside that and really had a great time together. And we both left so joyful to just have a new, wonderful friend in our life. And so it was just a really fun part of my day.
That's so beautiful. I love that you just said that, because the other thing too is that this is it, to get to that stage in your grief where you can have happiness and joy, and it doesn't distract at
Mhm.
all from what you've experienced, but you learn to accommodate everything. And
Right.
that's what we want people to see, that it is possible to move into that space, eventually.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And don't get me wrong, of course I have bad days, right? And I miss her horribly.
Mm.
But where I am now, and I hope this gives someone hope, is that those bad days don't last as long.
Yes.
At the beginning of grief, a bad day can set you back for days and days and days. But sometimes now, when I have a bad day, I may be down for a couple hours
Mm.
and then I can be back up. So I'm able to bounce back so much quicker and put a smile back on my face. For example, this past Friday was Taylor's birthday. She would have been 28. And I was really blue that day. But then the next day, I was great. Had that joyful spirit again. And that shows so much to me how much progress I've done, because years ago her birthday would have taken me down, right?
Mm. Yep.
But her birthday this past Friday was full of memories, and I was blue, of course, because I miss her,
Mm-hmm.
but it didn't take me down. I was able to really sit in the memory of her and love her from afar. And I also feel having this foundation in her name is also a way I spend time with her and honor her.
Mm. Mm-hmm.
So that has helped too. That has really helped too.
Thank you for sharing that. What is something that you are most grateful for?
Oh my goodness. Hands down, my family, my wonderful husband, my three, because I will always be a mom of three,
Mm-hmm.
wonderful children. And I'm grateful for our new grandbaby, thank you, whose middle name is Taylor.
Oh,
So that's so grateful for that. So grateful for that.
oh, that's special. That is really special. A bit sad about missing them intensely. How do you pivot out of those moments? What's your go to shift your energy?
Don't really force it. A good distraction for me is to go outside, to connect with a friend, just to step outside. If I'm in the chair and just super sad, I'll maybe move to the couch. Something
Mm.
to just not shake myself out of it, but help me take the step forward, because you really can't predict it. You really can't predict what will trigger it sometimes. I remember being in the grocery store and seeing her favorite cereal and losing it. Now I can go buy her favorite cereal and see it and go, oh, she loved that cereal. She loved it, when it doesn't tear me down so much. So that sting of grief comes and goes, but it doesn't last as long as it used to. And I don't think there's anything like, if I'm down, it's okay if I need to do this to get me out of it. Sometimes I think it's really important just to sit with it and know that it's okay to feel that way and not rush going, I guess I need to go outside to shake myself up. No, sometimes you just got to be that way. And it's really okay. If I go outside and walk to the mailbox or see the beautiful weather, sometimes I come back in and I still feel blue, and that's okay. It's not like I go outside and all of a sudden I'm better, but I know that better is coming. And that's really, I think, has been just a beautiful progress, is I know better is coming.
Mm. Sitting with it and having the hope that better is coming. That's beautiful. I'm going to ask you another question, because what you were just saying just touched me. With your experience, what do you think is the greatest thing you've learned from it?
Wow. That I think that I'm stronger than I ever thought I could ever be.
Mm.
Um, you feel like if something like this ever comes your way, you don't think you'd ever be able to handle it. And I think, honestly, you're a lot stronger than you think you are. And it's amazing how we, as the human race, and especially moms who have lost a child, we can do hard things.
Yeah.
we can.
Mm.
And things that will come your way from here on out, you know, you have done something really hard. And so you can do this too. So I think resilience has probably been the most aha for me. Like, I'm a lot more resilient than I ever gave myself credit for.
Mm.
Right. And I think everybody has that. I think everybody has that kind of spark of resilience. And sometimes you don't know you have it until you're faced with something hard.
Yeah. Sometimes we don't have the opportunity to get to know ourselves, do we, until something like this
Right.
happens. And then we really then get to know who we are and how we work
Yeah.
and how we operate and how we think and that. Oh, Tara, gosh, what an absolute privilege it has been to spend this time with you to discuss your beautiful daughter, Taylor, and the Taylor's Gift Foundation that you've set up. Just remind us again how people can find out more about the wonderful inspirational work that you were doing with this foundation.
Yeah, they can go to taylorsgift.org. You can learn all about us. You can get our book there on
Mm,
taylorsgift.org and see some other things that we have. For example, Nike partnered with us and created these Outlive Yourself socks. So we have those
mm,
too, and which is really special because the blue on the sock reflects the color of Taylor's eyes, and there's 5 stripes on them that give honor to the 5 lives she saved. So it's been really special. And you can just see the work we do with our grief support program and the families we've helped, and just hope that gives people inspiration that we're doing good work for others that need it.
yeah, you are. You truly are. Your whole entire family is such an inspiration. And I'm sorry that you had to go through this to get to that point. But what a privilege. I think, like you said, sharing is helping others understand that the space they're in is totally okay to be in that space. And by speaking to you today, you've just shared so many gems. Oh, gosh, I'm grateful. I'm grateful that I get to speak to people like you and share your stories. And I want to thank you so much for taking the time to be with me today to do that.
Well, thank you for having me. It was a joy.
Thanks for listening. I hope you got some real value from this episode. If there's a topic you'd like covered, click on the Beautiful Side of Grief at gmail.com link, or go into the beautifulsideofgrief.com website, where you can also leave a review. To get notified of new episodes, hit the subscribe button. And if you know of somebody who could benefit from this episode, please share. And until next time, please be kind to you and take good care.